Shalom. So I said I would do this video. I said I would do it tomorrow, but I just realized I was reading through the first 7 chapters and I won't be able to talk about it while it's still fresh in my mind. That's why I'm talking about it. Okay, so let's do a summary of this book. It's called No One Knows the Day or the Hour. It's called The Day and Hour No One Knows. No man knows. It was a riddle, not a command. O Foolish Virgin by Joseph F. Dumond. Published on July 1st, 2019. So the table of contents, you have the foreword, acknowledgements, and skip that and go to chapter 1. So chapter 1 is called, title of chapter 1 is, subtitle, heading, it's called The Riddle. Essentially, this book goes into what this means. And from chapter 1, it says that, why did Yeshua speak in riddles? He did that intentionally. That's the gist of chapter 1. People think it wasn't by accident. He didn't use parables by accident. It was on purpose. It was intentional to hide this information, to be disinformation, actually, in terms of what this means, this riddle. And there are many other parables, but this is talking about the day and hour for the return of Yeshua, basically. So it's a riddle. And he spoke in parables and riddles on purpose. That's point 1, that's chapter 1. Chapter 2. Do you presume to understand today? So the gist of chapter 2 basically is saying that people, majority of the world, even Christians today, do not understand. They do not understand what this means even today. That's the gist of chapter 2. So, number 1, chapter 1 it was on purpose. It was a riddle. Yehoshua spoke in parables on purpose to hide this information, to conceal it from those who do not know. For whatever reason, they don't know. But there are those who do know. And chapter 3 is called Open My Eyes So I Might See. So before we start, there's something pretty important that I think everyone should do, especially those who are watching this video. If you really want to understand what is being presented in this book and what I'm talking about too, because I'm also offering my own side commentary on this book, it's important to pray this prayer. And that can be found in Psalm 119, verses 18, starting verse 18. I'm reading from the Septuagint, Brenton's. Unveil thou mine eyes, and I shall perceive wondrous things out of thy law, out of thy Torah. I am a stranger in the earth. Hide not thy commandments from me. Verse 20, my soul has longed exceedingly for thy judgments at all times. Thou hast rebuked the proud. Cursed are they that turn aside from thy commandments. Remove from me reproach and contempt, for I have sought out thy testimonies. For princes sat and spoke against me, but thy servant was meditating on thine ordinances. For thy testimonies are my meditation, and thine ordinances are my counselors. Okay, so I'm going to end it there. So that's Psalm 119, verses 18 to 24. Actually, I extended it a little bit, but basically, in order for us to understand when is the time that Yahushua would come back, and what he even meant by saying no man will know the day or the hour. We must pray this prayer. It's not a magic trick that you just pray and you understand. It's more that you're asking him to give you understanding. So that's an introduction to that. So why was he speaking in parables? That's what chapter 3 asks. Well, it's because those who understand will understand more, and those who don't understand will continue not to understand. Basically, if you really want to understand, especially the Bible, but specifically this riddle, you'd have to do something very big. It's not easy. You'd have to do what Yahushua told his disciples to do. I'm going to get into that. That's keeping the Torah, keeping his commandments, keeping the 10 commandments, keeping the obeying God. You got to do those things in order to understand. So chapter 4, he's talking about few are chosen. So how do you become the chosen? Well, we don't get to decide. We don't get to choose that we're chosen. That's why you're called the chosen. You are chosen by the Father. So if you are chosen by the Father, one of the next steps you'd have to do, and it would be to be his friend, be a friend of God, to no longer be a servant. I'm not saying that you will never serve him, but there's different, let's say, echelons to the relationship with God. There's being a slave and being a friend. One of the prominent people in scriptures who is described as a friend of God is Abraham. Abraham was a friend of God. I believe he spoke to Abraham like face to face, or was that Moses? Anyhow, in John chapter 15, Yahushua says here in verse 14, let's go to 13, no, 12. This is my command, love one another as I have loved you. This is from the 21st century, or the 20th century New Testament, which is an English translation of the Westcott and Hort Greek text. It's one of the oldest Greek manuscripts. So it's basically, I like to think of it as the Brenton Septuagint of the New Testament form. So yeah, this is my command. Love one another as I have loved you. No one can give greater proof of love than by laying down his life for his friends. And you are my friends if, so there's a condition here, you, including me and you are my friends if you do what? What I command you. And what did he command us in the Torah? Commanded us the instructions of the Torah, the teachings there. If we obey those teachings, if we keep the 10 commandments, we will be given a greater understanding, and we'll be able to understand the parables. We'll be able to understand the words, the written words that God has left with us, his textbook to life. So that's chapter 4. Chapter 5. The disciples did not understand. That's an important point to make, because often people will search for God and they'll say that, God called me and I've been on this journey X amount of days or weeks or months or even years. But a lot of people, what they don't understand is that this calling, this way, a derek in Hebrew, the way, it's not a destination that I'm here and I'm done. No, it's a process. We're continually learning, continually growing. We should be, at least. So if you recall, the disciples did not always understand what Yahushua would speak of when he spoke in parables. It was only until a later time, and that was when the Holy Spirit was given to them, and especially on the day of Pentecost or Shavuot, they understood a lot of the things that previously they did not understand. So, talking about ourselves now, I don't even understand what this book's about. I'm only in chapter 7 or 8 now. It's a process. Life is like reading a book. It only makes more sense the further we get into it. The more we continue in this walk, the more we are obedient, the more he will open our eyes and he'll give us more truth, because we're responsible with what we are given. Then he'll give us more. Understand? So that's chapter 5. It's a process, essentially. Chapter 6, who opens our eyes? That's the heading there. Well, that's the Father opens our eyes, and that's via the Holy Spirit. And I think I mentioned that already. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything here. So I hope all this is making sense. Chapter 7 is called the time of the end. Even Daniel did not understand what was being told to him from the angel about the end time. But if we look at our timeline in history, in human history, we are now in the time of the end. We have been in the time of the end since after Yahushua ascended back into heaven, but we are even closer to the time of the end than a lot of people would understand. We're right at the cusp. We can see from our history and even recent events that things are boiling up. They're boiling to a fever pitch in some cases. Maybe not in North America or Europe in some places, but definitely in more volatile areas of the planet. So we are in the end time. And so that's all I have to say about chapters 1 to 7. So like I said, this is only a summary of this book. I'm not going to read the contents because I think I would do it a disservice by trying to giving away all whatever's written here. I think it would be best served to those who are really truly wanting to prove these things, buy the book yourself and read it. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to go over the chapters, and I'm going to read it myself and just give you a brief summary, what I believe are the high points, the highlights, and just maybe some commentary as well, as I've been sharing on this book so far, chapters 1 to 7. So Daniel didn't understand what the visions meant, but what's important here is to know, what is important to know here is that these events are for the time of now, the time we're living in now. And it says here, I'm going to read it from the Septuagint. This is a really big point to make. I can find it. Daniel 12, right at the end here. Daniel. Right, Daniel 12. Daniel 9, oh, 12, sorry, 12. First I'll read verse 8, or chapter 8. Chapter 8, and going to verse 15. It says here, it came to pass, as I, Daniel, saw the vision and sought to understand it, that behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man, and I heard the voice of a man between the Ubal, and he called and said, Gabriel, cause that man to understand the vision. And he came and stood near where I stood, and when he came, I was struck with awe, and fell upon my face. But he said to me, Understand, Son of Man, for yet the vision is for an appointed time. Oh, okay, my Bible says differently than the King James. Or an end of time. So the vision is for an appointed time or an end of time. And while he spoke with me, verse 18, I fell upon my face to the earth, and he touched me and set me on my feet. And he said, Behold, I make thee know the things that shall come to pass at the end of the wrath. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. That really changes a lot, actually. I didn't think I'd read that. I didn't think it would be worded that way. That changes a lot. Just that little change from end time to appointed time. I think that just further solidifies this argument that Joseph is going to make. Joseph Dumont, the author. Oh, my phone just died. But basically, the King James says end, the time of the end, and the Septuagint says an appointed time. And if you are versed in Hebrew, an appointed time in Hebrew is a moedim, and the appointed times are outlined in Leviticus 23, the appointed times of Yah. Okay, and where am I? Daniel 12, verse 9. We're supposed to go there. And I'm going to end the video. It says here, I heard but understood not, and I said, O Lord, what will be the end of these things, or Adonai? And he said, Go, Daniel, for the words are closed and sealed up to the time of the end. Many must be tested and thoroughly whitened and tried with fire and sanctified. But the transgressors shall transgress, and none of the transgressors shall understand. So if you're a transgressor, you won't understand. And if I am a transgressor, I won't understand either. But if you obey, you will begin to understand, and you will eventually understand. And from the time of the removal, but the wise shall understand, and from the time of the removal of the perpetual sacrifice, when the abomination of desolation shall be set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1,325 days. Thou and rest, for there are yet days and seasons to the fulfillment of the end, and thou shalt stand in thy lot at the end of the days. So we are in the end of the days, essentially, and you can prove this if you read the previous books by Joseph Dumont, the prophecies of Abraham. I don't know if I can reach it from here, but and the 2300 Days of Hell, as well as remembering the sabbatical years. Let me just get those books so you can see them. Right, okay, so we are in the time of the end. This book, The Prophecies of Abraham, there's a better cover that is coming. I believe on Amazon they'll have a more aesthetically pleasing cover, but essentially what Joseph is offering, or what he is presenting, is that in Genesis chapter 6, if you turn there, in the Brenton Septuagint, it's not much different than what is in the King James for this verse. It says here, verse 4, and Jehovah Elohim said, my spirit shall certainly not remain among these men forever, because they are flesh, but their days shall be 120 years. So does every man live 120 years? No, definitely not. But he's also saying here, Yah is saying their days, meaning our lot, our era, our time to be rulers, I guess you could say. The age of man will last for 120 Shana, cycles of time. So what Joseph is proposing is, if you take a Jubilee cycle, because you can't use other units of time besides a Jubilee cycle to fit this timeline. Here it is. Okay. This is what it looks like. It's called the 49-year millennial week. Okay. Maybe that's not what I'm looking for. No. Looking for the 120 cycles of time, which is 120 multiplied by 49, which equals 5,880. I might be able to find it here. Yeah, okay, yeah, actually it is here. So basically he's calculated from the first, right here in the blue, that's 49 years after the creation of Adam, which is the first Shana, the first cycle, first Jubilee cycle, or Yobel. If you keep going and keep counting, it's 20 cycles, and that's 20 cycles, okay? This is, one of these rows is 20, that's 40, that's 60, orange is, 20, let's start over, 20, green, yellow, 40, 60 is orange, red, 80 years, 100 years, 120 cycles of time, right here in the purple. We are at, by his reckoning, and you could do the math yourself if you read this book and the other books that he has specifically, I would say this one, 2300 Days of Hell. But in this, by this reckoning, we are in year 5,800. If you do the math, it all works out. 5,855. That's the current year based on the Bible calendar, not the Roman calendar that Emperor Julian had established, which a man established. This is the calendar that God had started when he created us, when he created mankind and this planet on the beginning right there, the first cycle of time. We are right here. We are right there, right in between. 5,855. Look, this is 19th cycle of time, and that's year 5831. And this is 5880. So what happens after that? Well, our time will be done. Not that we're going to be extinct. We're going to continue to live, but we're not going to be in charge anymore. If Joseph is right, then that would be the time when we would be under God's government, which is the year 5,929, which is, let's see, it's for 55, that is 45 plus 29, 74. So it's 74 years from now. So 74, that would be 2094. By 2094, it sounds so, I know, if you're not familiar with this, it's going to sound so outlandish or however, but so by that year, 2094, will be the year when we're under God's government, when Yeshua comes back to the earth. It would be, I don't know if he's coming back exactly at that time frame or before, but anyhow, we are in the end time. Just that's what I wanted to show you. So that's chapters 1 to 7. Thank you for watching, and shalom. May the peace, may the shalom of Yah be with you. And I'll come back to do the next chapters later in the day, in the morning or afternoon, but hopefully by tomorrow sometime. I want to get this book done before the next month finishes, which is before the end of this 12th month, based on the sighted moon calendar. So I'm on chapter 8, and I'm not sure how far I'll get, but however far I'll get, I'll explain it as a summary. Originally, I planned to do 5 chapters per video, but I did 7 because it just made sense that it wasn't too much information for me to process, and I could still keep it pretty fresh in my mind and talk about it where it was still fresh in my mind rather than me trying to just wing it. So, all right, thanks again for watching, and look forward to the next video, which is coming up. If not tomorrow, then at the latest by Tuesday. Okay, shalom.